Hello, welcome back to Cultivate. I'm Ty Fischer, your host, the head of school here at Veritas Academy in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I'm here with at least 3 of my favorite seniors, maybe 4 of my favorite seniors. I have one that's a family member. So I want to introduce them to you. And today on the podcast, we are going to hopefully talk a little bit about books that they love, talk a little bit about the impact of those books on our lives, and hopefully get into maybe a little bit of judgment, disagreement, and fighting. So, the first rule of Fight Club on books is you don't talk about Fight Club. But today we're going to talk about it here on the podcast. So first off, I want to let them introduce themselves. We'll start, ladies first. We'll start on the right-hand side. You're having to imagine this, but let's start with Rachel Jacob. Rachel?
Yes, my name's Rachel. I'm a senior here. I came here in kindergarten, and I've gone through the full 13 years.
Oh, it took you 13 years to get through from kindergarten to 12th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
Held back a lot. I play in the orchestra. I play volleyball on the team.
Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Hurrah, yes. Yeah. And I'm planning to do engineering in college.
Okay, that's good. Do you know what kind of engineering?
Probably materials engineering, but I'm still kind of feeling it out.
Okay. Now, Ruthie Reeser.
Hi, I'm Ruthie. I've been here since 8th grade, and I am on was on the cross-country team. And
You're still like the cross-country team.
I still am, yes.
Yeah, I think that our cross-country team here at Veritas, the folks are so close that I think that people, even when they graduate, will come back and just run around the track.
100%,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am on the cross-country team, and I love Veritas, love reading, and I plan on majoring in the classics in college.
Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. Okay, now over to Simon Rickert.
All right, hey guys, welcome. I'm Simon Rickert, and this is my 10th year at Veritas. I came here in 3rd grade. I'm really interested in running. I also am on the cross-country team here at Veritas, and I am planning to do it at Penn State to major in materials science, just like Rachel, I believe.
What is material science or material engineering? So I think about electrical, mechanical, that kind of stuff. What is material engineering?
Well, it's very chemistry-based. As we all know, everything has to be made of something.
You guys are Laura's disciples.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes,
Loris.
in that way, yes. So a lot of materials engineers, they either choose or design the certain materials that are used in different fields. So that could be aircraft or cars, whatever it could be.
Okay, thank you. And last but certainly not least is Christian Wenger. Christian.
Greetings, I'm Christian Wenger, also surprisingly a senior here. Maybe you'll catch on to the trend a little bit. Yeah, I've been here for 13 years, ever since kindergarten, cross-country, soccer, drama. I've been involved with sound and stuff like that for plays. Next year, I'm planning on going to Grove City to major in business economics.
Grove City is, of course, my alma mater, so congratulations to you, Christian.
Oh, well, thank you.
So let's start this conversation with a question that's open to everyone, and that is, in your opinion, what makes a book a good book? What makes it an enjoyable book to read? Because our books are kind of like our friends. So, what makes a good book for you?
Personally, this is purely my own opinion. I haven't gone into the structure.
But it is your own opinion.
Yes. The structure or whatnot of every book I've read. But I like the books that I like have really smart main characters.
Smart main characters?
Yes, because I find that when you have a really smart main character, they move the plot instead of the plot moving them.
Okay.
So I've read a lot of the books that some of my friends have read that are more modern, and I don't like them just because I feel like it's all about reaction and not action.
Huh.
Like, it's about everything that happens to that main character, and they just kind of like flounder about. And I don't really enjoy that because I don't think there's anything to be learned from it, or there is something to be learned from it, but not usually a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one big thing that I like.
Okay. Christian or Simon?
Yeah, I can jump on that. There's kind of two things for me. It's first of all, I want the book to be saying something, and then I want the thing that it's saying to either be something that should be said or something that's funny. Sometimes it's both, and if it's neither, I'm a little disappointed. But yeah.
Okay. Ruthie or Simon, you want to jump in on that?
So for me, I agree with Rachel that a character-driven plot is interesting, but I do feel like it has to be an original enough plot to really make me interested. Something that's thought-provoking and original enough to make me at the end think, this is something I wasn't expecting.
Okay. So, like, for instance, I try to pick a series of books that many people might be interested in or at least know a little bit about. So there's this series of books called the Harry Potter series. You might have heard of it. What's interesting is, so like using Simon's standard there, the first books were kind of ingenious. But when it got to the end, I really felt like it was just kind of a recapitulation of the gospel story. Like Harry's going to die and come back to life. So I was like, I know what's going to happen next. I know because I've read. Anyway, Ruthie?
Sure. This is kind of a common theme that everyone else has been talking about, but I think a book should have something in it that's worth pondering or considering in your spare time. It should be something that makes you think hard about it. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't have something that's actually meaningful and that you can think about in a way that will change you for the better, then I don't think it's really worth reading. And I feel kind of just like, why did I read that by the end of it?
Okay. Do you give up?
No, I don't give up. I go through the end usually.
Okay. So I'm a through the end guy. Start with the first word. Mrs. Fischer just tosses them. My wife, she says, if I don't like it, chapter 1, she's never read an introduction to a book in her life because she's like, that's not part of it. And I'm like,
no, you have to read the prologue.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, she's so wrong. I hope she doesn't listen to this. So do you, this one is really more for just my own, I'm a very particular person. I wish I was not, yet I am. What makes a good place to read? And do you have a favorite place to read?
Not specifically a certain place, but it has to be a place where I'm not used to doing work in terms of like homework or something that just is a very menial task. I don't like doing reading for enjoyment in any of those kind of places.
Okay.
And I like to be out of direct light.
Out of direct light?
Yeah, I like being in the dark.
Are you sure you're actually reading the book and you see the text?
Yeah, like out of direct sunlight. So there's light and you can see the pages, but it helps you to get into your mind more.
Okay.
In my opinion.
No judgment yet. Anybody else have a favorite place to read?
I'm actually the exact opposite. I like to be in sunlight. Like specifically, I like being outside. I think being outside and reading is very relaxing. And if I can't be outside, then I have a huge like windows in my house, and I'll sit right in front of them.
Oh, that's okay.
That makes me relax.
So Rachel and Ruthie,
we're never reading together.
Not reading together. You guys?
Yeah, I'll take a different approach here. But I think as a high school student, I've gotten used to reading with a lot of noise and chatter around me. So the thing is, I actually got accustomed to that noise and chatter. Now I can't read without it. So I usually like to read with some background noise, and that's why I think reading in a car on a long road trip is my favorite.
Oh, really? Sometimes people it makes them ill to do that, but not you.
Not me, no.
Okay.
I've received some hate for this in the past, but I really enjoy reading on the beach. Well, I've been told that I'm wasting my time on the beach, but I guess you could say I'm somewhat beach spoiled because my grandparents have a beach house. Your in-laws.
My father and mother-in-law. And it's a wonderful breeding
And
place.
the price is right to go to the beach when it's your grandparents.
Yeah. So you like reading on the beach. I as well. And at that beach house, Christian, who's my nephew, would know this. There's one chair that is my favorite place to read. And it's really embarrassing that so we have a bunch of family members there, and somebody gets in my chair, and I just kind of stare them down. And,
it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah. And then when they get up, like, let's say that they want to, go and get a snack or something like that, I swoop. I swoop and take the chair. And then they come back in and they look at me, but I won't look them in the eye then. I'll just look down my book. This is my favorite place. One of my favorite.
Known.
Yeah, there you go. So let's jump into books. Now, here at Veritas, we have classes called omnibus classes where we're reading through a lot of the great books. So what I wanted to do today is to have each student tell us a little bit about the book from omnibus that they've liked the most. I don't want you to spoil any plots, even though in the omnibus textbook there are some essays that do spoil plots.
Who wrote those?
Please forgive the editors there. And tell us what you like about the book and why people should love this book. So who would like to? We'll start with a few of the omnibus books. What was your favorite and what do you like about it? Okay, go ahead, Christian. And then after this, we'll make judgment about Christian's choice.
Oh boy.
Harsh judgment.
Is there any other kind of judgment?
So my favorite book in omnibus, I think, was Pride and Prejudice, read in Mrs. Forbes' omnibus class. Don't spoil the plot. If you know anything about the book, you may be able to understand why going into it, a 9th grade boy would think, well, this is just going to be awful. But as it turned out, it wasn't awful, and I found it to be actually very enjoyable and interesting and actually thought out, even though it was about something that I really, at the time, would express no interest in. So yeah, I really enjoyed that I was able to look at this book and say, I'm not going to like this. And then I did like it. I like to be wrong sometimes, but not too often.
So why should people love Pride and Prejudice?
Because, well, it meets my criteria. It's saying something, and it's saying something that should be said and something that's also funny.
So it's did you invent the standard based on this book, or did the book just happen to fit the standard?
I think the book helped shape my standard, actually. Which when you read a book and then you say, well, I like this about that book, and then you start looking at other books and looking for the things you liked about that kind of shows that, well, hey, maybe this book did something right.
Yeah. Well, and few books are going to measure up to Jane Austen because she's so demanding. She wants you to catch every inference she's throwing out there. So now let's go to the judgment part of this. What do we think about Christian's judgment of books here for his omnibus favorite?
I mean, personally, I really like Pride and Prejudice. I think it's a really well-written book, and she has just such lovable characters written in there. And, like, each character definitely talks a lot about, who they are in their dialogue. So, I don't know. I don't have a lot of judgment for it. It's one that I like a lot.
Oh, no judgment, Rachel. Now, I will say this. One of the things I love about Pride and Prejudice is I meet the characters of Pride and Prejudice, like, in real life. They have those characteristics, and you're just like, oh, it's Mr. Collins. Yeah. So who else would like to jump in and tell us about their favorite book that they read in class and why it's their favorite? It's Ruthie Reeser.
Okay. So my favorite book that we've read in Omnibus is The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius.
That's everyone's favorite, I'm pretty sure.
And we read that with Mr. Dennis in 11th grade. It's one of my favorites because, well, for me personally, it really introduced me to the beauty of medieval cosmology, which I ended up writing my junior thesis on. And it's a very good use of philosophy in a way that points to God without usurping him, as the Enlightenment often does, and without necessarily even mentioning him in the plot, but just pointing to him.
Okay.
And it incorporates beautiful poetry, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so one of the rules about Austen's books are show, don't tell. So in some ways, it's kind of like that. It's pointing to God, but not doing it like we usually do it, like saying God, 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 and pointing. Okay, it's time for judgment. Anybody got judgments about Consolation of Philosophy? Oh, my.
I don't know if I'm smart enough to make a judgment.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Christian. Okay, so we've got 2 left. What's your favorite book?
Okay, so I'd have to go with another 9th grade classic in Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Oh, that is
And
classic.
I think a lot of people would agree with me on this one, but I'm not too original, so we'll go with this. Animal Farm, without giving too much away, is somewhat of a political fable, an allegory of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which uses animals instead of people. And it is one of my favorite books of all time.
Okay. Any judgments on Animal Farm? Man, look at
I
it.
liked Animal Farm.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if you just picked up the book, you wouldn't be able to see the symbolism behind it. If I just say, like, for someone who wanted to pick up Animal Farm, research the background to it so that you're not just reading a story about pigs on a farm.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I remember the first time I came into contact with Animal Farm was when I was very young, and I really didn't catch the background. But sometimes that's really fun too, when, you know, you come back to something like the Narnia books are like this. You come back to them later in life and you go, oh my, this was sitting there all the time and I didn't realize it. Okay, Ruthie, you're last. Or wait, no. Rachel's last.
My favorite book in omnibus was The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Okay.
I really loved it because I love books with rich symbolism, and especially with really good character development.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a woman who committed adultery, and the narrative is kind of about her confronting her past and moving on from it and becoming a better person because of it and that kind of thing. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I also liked it because I think Hester Prynne, who is the woman, is an actually strong female character, which you don't see a lot of today.
Okay.
You kind of see like presentations of strong females as just like really bad men. So
Oh my.
yeah, so I liked that. I liked that she was still very like a feminine woman and still very strong.
Okay, there might be some judgment coming from Christian because he was turning the mic his way.
Come at me.
Uh-oh.
What's the moral?
The moral, can I don't know, I don't want to spoil it.
Okay. Well, let's set that aside for right now. The reason is because I think we can get into even juicier disagreements in the non-omnibus books. So not all of the books that are worth reading are in the omnibus. So I wanted to ask these students, what are some of their favorite books outside of the omnibus? And I'm guessing there's going to be more significant disagreement on those books. So who would like to jump in?
So for me, my favorite book that I've read outside of omnibus is Chesterton's The Man Who Was Thursday.
How many of you have read that book? No.
Strike out. That means they can't oppose me.
I have read the book.
Oh boy. I enjoyed it because it was very different than anything I'd read before. It was given to me on a Christmas. I'm still not sure why or what the people who gave it to me were trying to say. I feel like I can give a little spoilers.
So, without saying what happens at the end of the book, do you have any idea what happens at the end of the book?
I mean, yes and no, and honestly, I don't even know.
Yeah, it has a really crazy ending. I also love that book. It's one of those things that's a little bit mind-bending. So if you're, there are many different ways into Chesterton. Like you can read some of his religious stuff like Orthodoxy, or his historical stuff like The Everlasting Man. If you want to start by reading a novel that he did, The Man Who Was Thursday is one of those things that's a little mind-bending. So, Christian, you escaped the great judgment.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Anybody else who's brave enough to jump in now? Oh, Simon, there we go.
I instantly turned the mic. Okay, so I think my favorite book in general would have to be The Stand by Stephen King.
Okay.
Now, when you think of Stephen King, you probably think of, The Shining, It, Misery, those kind of creepy books. But The Stand is actually his longest novel, and it is a story of...
I think I threw it at a rabbit once and hurt the rabbit. I mean, it's a big book.
It is massive. But without giving too much away, The Stand is a story of a plague that hits the world that wipes out 99.7% of the population. And ironically enough, I read this during COVID.
Oh, no.
So
You were hoping it wasn't prophetic. Worst COVID read ever.
I was like, oh, this isn't good. But it's stuffed with themes of sacrifice, the resilience of the human spirit, and the whole book is a story of good versus evil. You know, the remaining survivors of the plague split into two big camps, and there's a tussle between them. So I won't give away what happens in the end, but it is a great story.
Anyone else Stephen King fans here? So most of what King does would fit into kind of the horror genre, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Any horror fans here, or?
I mean, for some reason, horror movies I can't handle. Like, I can't even do zombies.
Yeah,
but
no,
I
I'm
love
like
Edgar
you.
Allan Poe. I love Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
And, like, The Pit and the Pendulum is one of my favorites. So, I mean, I guess I could say I like reading it.
Okay, Simon. Not too great a judgment there. I'm not a big horror fan, but it sounds like that book doesn't really fit the broader themes that you think about when you think about Stephen King and horror stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly disturbing, but it's not disturbing on the level of, scary horror.
Okay, Ruthie and Rachel?
I mean, technically this is in the omnibus program, but my favorite book to just read is The Iliad. I love the crazy similes and metaphors. I think they're super fun, and I love just getting lost in how wacky they are. Also, I love Bronze Age history and the ancient world, so I'm kind of really biased. But yeah, I love the Iliad.
Okay, the Iliad. So are there Iliad fans or detractors around the table? Now for a rebuttal, Christian Wenger.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to make fun of her because I don't know. It's
You're not making fun. You're making judgment.
I suppose. I mean, wouldn't you want to read something like fun?
Well, I think it is fun. So
See, that's the problem. Like, if that's fun, I don't know. That scares me almost.
Okay. Rachel?
I like the Iliad, but I know it can be very hard to get through with a lot of these old kind of battle-centered stories. And a lot of it is like, and he knocked this person off of this horse, and Glaucus was stabbed with a spear, and that's like for 10 pages long.
Black
So, like,
Horse's mother
but-
wept profusely.
Exactly.
You got Rosy-Fingered Dawn and the Black Mist of Death. That's all. It's all happening.
Yes, the man was thrown into the river and his limbs were ripped off. Like all of that. It's a lot of that. But I think once you get past that stuff and you can see into the story, it's really cool. And it's definitely a good kind of view into the culture and that kind of
So
thing.
you mean when you read the Spark Notes?
Oh.
No, I read.
Oh, my goodness. Christian.
Speak for yourself, Christian.
Oh, okay. But the Iliad, the thing that I love about the Iliad is when you get into the heart of some of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hector is just such an amazing guy. And that glory of Achilles and how at the end he has to reconsider.
Yeah.
He has to think, this bargain I've made, is it worth it? And the hopelessness of paganism is kind of front and center, and I think that's a helpful thing to kind of remember that without Jesus, there's a lot lacking in the world.
yeah, that, and I also think
Like everything.
yes, I think it's interesting how it also seems to teach the Greek ideas of ordering your soul and having your appetites and your emotions like underneath reason or virtue, which I think is what's taught to Achilles. And I don't know, I find it really interesting to read that and the difference between Hector and Achilles and how that all works. I don't know, I think it's really rich in symbolism. I just love the Iliad.
Yeah. I love that part where they're on the wall and Helen comes out and they're all like, Helen has really caused a mess here. And then they see her and they go like, probably worth it. Probably worth it. So, Rachel, you're the last one.
I feel like I might get a little more pushback from this, and I have whenever I tell people this. Well, a lot of my favorite books are actually what we read in the omnibus curriculum, but the one that I could find outside of it was Dune by Frank Herbert.
Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of goes along with what I said, is that I like really smart characters who move the plot, and one of the things I noticed when I was learning things in omnibus that I really like the part of like political intrigue, and they have that a lot in Dune, at least the first book. I haven't read the others, but I really, really enjoyed Dune. And I really like the characters and the character development, that kind of thing.
Well, and Rachel, you've been born timely. I was born untimely because my first experience with Dune was, I think, a movie that was made back in the 80s.
I've heard it was pretty awful.
Yeah, no,
but I haven't seen it.
It was terrible, and I then didn't read the book. And when the new movie was coming out, I said, I'm gonna have to. I want to read Dune before I see it. And I think, I thought the book was great.
Yeah.
And then I went to the movie and I was like, that is so much better than the one.
Yeah, the old one.
When the golly, you guys, the
top tier
the kind
CGI,
of
all
kind
that
of
stuff.
special effects that I believed in back in the day, you guys wouldn't tolerate. So, any Dune detractors here? No, like a lot of Dune fans. So at Veritas, I talk a lot about paideia, which is really enculturation in an all through life process. And books are an important part of that paideia here at Veritas. How do you feel like you've been shaped by those books that you've read? And maybe even because those books that you've read, a lot of them, at least initially, there's a teacher that's a conduit for those books. So how have those teachers and those books shaped some of the person that you are? I hope that there are a lot of other influences besides the teachers at Veritas, like your parents and your friends and your church and all of that. But how have the books and the teachers really impacted you?
Well, I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed in Omnibus is learning the background to these books that we read, because a lot of the time reading a book is like time travel. Like you get to see and hear about what those people who were writing at that time believed and what they thought about certain things, and kind of knowing that and having that guidance made the book so much more alive to me. And with every book there's a worldview to it, right? And knowing those different things, like you're exposed to these different worldviews in these books, and it's really fun and it's really thought-provoking to interact with those different ideas.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody else?
I think for me, I've really been shaped by the idea of medieval cosmology and the medieval worldview since last year.
So when you look up at the sky, what do you see?
Well, I see the stars and I think about the actual physical scientific reality of what space looks like. But I think of the idea of looking vertically and thinking of striving perfect our Christian lives and striving to imitate Christ in all we do, which is a very medieval idea of looking vertically instead of horizontally to the things of the world and Fortune's kingdom. And that was
Fortune's Kingdom, a little Boethius slipping in there.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I think, specifically teachers, Mr. Dennis's class in 8th grade and 11th grade has really affected my worldview, and I really appreciated learning about that.
I did want to ask this question because it's something that I'm worried about for myself, and that is during the winter, a lot of times I'm out walking the dog early in the morning and the stars are still out. It's that early. Mm-hmm. Is there something wrong with me that all I can see, all the stars I put together into Big and Little Dipper? Like, I just make Big and Little Dipper out of everything. I'm like, there can't be that many dippers. And I think about Harriet Tubman and, follow the drinking gourd. And I'm like, if I was Harriet Tubman, I'd just be wandering around in circles because everything is pointing in every different direction.
In the utensil drawer.
Yeah, I'm in. Right. I'm in the utensil drawer. Thank you, Ruthie. Okay. What about you guys?
Yeah, so I would have to definitely agree with Rachel and comment on the timelessness of books. For me, I like listening to people who have lived in years before me talk about stuff that happened in the past, and I feel like books are even more like that. Reading a book is just like hearing a person tell a story from so many years ago, and now I think of that instead of just how much information can I stuff inside my head.
Yeah, it's especially interesting when you can see that there's something about what that person's saying that resonates with you, and they're saying it like I was thinking of Thucydides, saying it thousands of years ago. And you go, that's spot on, or that's like me, or I think back to the Pericles, the funeral oration, where he says, he tries to put you in a frame of mind. Do we have a city here that's worth dying for? I mean, that's an incredible, like, I don't like to talk about politics because I have decided that my life verse is put no confidence in princes. But man, we long for leadership that will do something like that will say, let us make a place that's worth fighting for, that's worth dying for. We don't often get that leadership these days. I think Luther would say something like, well, you get the leaders you deserve. So, yeah. Christian?
Well, I think Rachel kind of touched on this a bit, but having the context for a book completely changes what you'll get out of it, I think. If you know what's going on with the author personally, with the world at the time it's being written, there's a lot more I think you can get out of the book. Whereas if you just, oh, this is a cool book I've heard about and I'm going to read it now, that was fun. You're not maximizing what you can get out of it. Whereas if you actually strive to educate yourself about what the book is actually about, instead of like these characters, they actually represent something, right? And the teachers do that always. They, they'll walk you through it. Like Mrs. Bustard was the first one. She'd have the charts with like motifs and themes and characters and what happens when this character does this and when this symbolism arrives, what's going on. And to have people to help walk you through that, I think really helps you to get more out of the book in a way that,
well, and I will say, Mrs. Bustard has been a guest on this podcast. She passed away. Boy, it seems like yesterday, but I think it was more than a year ago now that she passed away as a result of cancer that she had. So that's both a meaningful answer, and then it brings up heaviness to it as well. Thank you for mentioning that, Christian.
I was also going to say, like, with going along with what Christian said, that these books, learning the context and learning the ideas that they present, they not only give you these ideas, but they make them very personal. Like, when you're reading about a character engaging with these ideas, like we're reading Crime and Punishment right now, and you see Raskolnikov, fighting with these different worldviews. It's not like, I feel like if you just engage with an idea, it doesn't feel like that applies to real people. But when you read a book, you see how that affects the person and how it becomes a part of their life, and you're really engaging face to face and not just in the abstract world. Yeah,
and those kind of books really shape you. It's such a blessing. So often when I interact, and I honestly live in a bubble, okay? And I live in a bubble, and then I go out to other bubbles that are like this bubble. And when I go outside of the bubble, I worry that it's not, I think the kids at Veritas, students at Veritas, young people at Veritas, I don't want to call you kids, they're not that much different than kids everywhere, but they have a taste for something that would really bless kids, students, young people, other places. And I don't see our culture or our schools really helping kids find some of the best friends that they'll have, which are old dead people who tell us things that are true. I mean, I have Dante and Beatrice over there, and I mean, Dante is I hope to meet him in heaven someday and just say, man, you were so good. I actually had this silly story. Yeah. That's not what it's about. Yeah, and Beatrice is above.
It's very symbolic.
Yeah. So I had a friend once who was, we were thinking about Dante and Beatrice and had that same idea of like, and I said, he's not trying to get a date. He's trying to he's trying to get to God. And he's able to look through this woman and see the divine image and then pursue relationship with the divine. So it's such a blessing to be here with 4 seniors. That doesn't mean that they probably have cell phones. Do you have cell phones?
Fortunately, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, they have cell phones, many of them. They probably have played a video game before. It's true?
It's true.
Never. Okay. They probably have some social media accounts. Is it true? True. Some.
No.
Okay.
Proudly no.
Okay. That's great. And I'm not saying that I do know who Taylor Swift is because I watch football, but I'm not saying that it's good, bad. I don't know. I wouldn't know her songs. I would only know a few of them. But it's not that there's not good things in the modern world or the very contemporary world or the world of today. It's just there's a lot of good things that don't have anything to do with today. And knowing them can actually make today better. Mm-hmm. So thank you all for sharing this time, and keep reading. I hope that you continue to make friends both in the flesh and then friends that
and old dead guys.
Old dead guys. And old dead girls too, Rachel.
And girls, my bad.
Okay. Thank you so much, seniors.